Namaskar, this is Pia, and we have with us today recipient of several international awards, Padma Awardee nominee from the Government of India, that is Dr. Pradeep Deshpande, President and CEO, Six Sigma and Advanced Controls. Dr. Deshpande is also a Professor Emeritus and former chair of the Department of Chemical Engineering at the University of Louisville, Kentucky. He is also the author and co-author of 8 books and numerous general articles. Let's welcome Dr. Pradeep to ITV Gold, and Namaskar, Doctor, how are you doing today?
Namaskar, thank you very much for having me, okay?
Thank you so much for coming. So let's start with this fundamental question, like what is the origination of the formation of this universe, and what is Sanatan Dharma, and how are these two related?
All right, how is the universe created, and how is the creation of the universe linked to Sanatan Dharma?
Right.
That's what you want to know.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I will tell you an interesting story, hopefully. It's about the year is 1995. And teenager Amanda Gefter, actually she is from Northeast. She's having dinner with her dad, Professor Warren Gefter, who is a professor of pathology at the University of Pennsylvania Medical School in Philadelphia, okay? During the course of dinner, Dr. Gefter asked Amanda, "What is nothing?" Amanda responded, "Maybe absence of something or absence of everything." "Why do you ask?" Dr. Gefter then told Amanda that just might hold the key to the beginning of the universe. Now, for the first time, according to her own account, Amanda had a smile on her face in many, many years. This class-cutting, sleeping through classes teenager got excited for the first time in many years, according to her. So she asks her dad, how do we find out? So the dad says, let's do some research. Well, research they did, buying book after book on topics like quantum mechanics, relativity theory, astronomy, cosmology, particle physics, and so on, study late into the night until her mother would tell them, "It's getting pretty late. It's time to go to bed." In any event, the father-daughter duo, they find a hint here and a clue there, but no real answers. So then they decide that they have to talk directly to the physicists, Now the year is 2002. Amanda has graduated from college, as high school, and she's working at a bridal magazine called Manhattan Magazine. When she stumbled upon an announcement of a Physics and Ultimate Reality conference at Princeton that had been organized to celebrate the 90th birthday of famed physicist John Archibald Wheeler, a colleague of Albert Einstein at Princeton. So they decided that they will travel to Princeton, but and attend the conference. That would be the opportunity to meet many physicists. Well, unfortunately, neither of them is a physicist. So how to get there? In any event, Amanda gathered courage and asked the conference organizer on the telephone, "We'd like to cover your conference," pretending to be a journalist. "And could we have a couple of tickets?" So the conference organizer says, "Sure, we'll send them to you." So the father duo attended the conference met a number of physicists, and when the opportunity was right, they had an audience with John Archibald Wheeler. Dr. Gefter asked Dr. Wheeler, "Hey, what is? Who created the universe?" Dr. Wheeler said, "Physics. The universe is a self-excited circuit." Upon hearing this, Amanda wrote down in her notebook, "Wheeler thinks the universe came out of nothing." So now let's evaluate what Dr. Wheeler said. If the size of the universe, let's say, is this big today, and in 1929, Edwin Hubble discovered that the universe was expanding. If you go back 1 billion years, the universe would be smaller. 10 billion years, it would be still smaller. If you go back some 13.8 billion years, the size of the universe would be about what is called Planck length, 10 to the minus 33 centimeters in diameter. So the universe at that time was an extremely hot, unbelievably small, and immensely dense energy phase. The question arises, on one side of the energy phase of the Big Bang event, there is this expanding universe. What's on the other side? So my colleague and associate Jim Kowal took this one step further after Amanda Gefter had concluded that on the other side of the energy phase of the Big Bang event, there is absolutely nothing, a zero, void. So my associate Jim Kowal concluded that nothing physical can travel through the size of Planck length and be present on the other side, that is of even fundamental forces of nature like electromagnetism, gravity, small, weak nuclear force, strong nuclear force. They're all physical. They cannot possibly go through the size of Planck length, 10 to the minus 33 centimeters in diameter. But consciousness is not physical. It has no difficulty going through the size of Planck length and be present on the other side. So it is the consciousness that created the energy phase of the Big Bang event, which then created the universe. His Holiness the Dalai Lama says that the universe may end one day, but consciousness will remain because it is eternal. It was always there, it will always be there. Now, mind you, science or physics cannot explain how nothing can create anything or something like the energy phase of the Big Bang event. But consciousness can. Now, coming to the notion of Sanatan Dharma, we have to understand a concept from ancient times called Sankhya. Not Sankhya, enumeration, but Sankhya. Sankhya posits that there are 5 principal elements and 3 what are called gunas, abbreviated as S, R, and T, in all of creation. Now, you might wonder how something that is inanimate can possibly have the attributes S, R, and T. There was a famous scientist by the name of J.C. Bose who many consider him to be father of radio science. He was knighted by the British government during the British Raj, and he is a fellow of the Royal Society. He had demonstrated that not only do human beings have emotions, but plants feel pain and metals feel stress. The long and the short of Dr. Bose's assertion is that all of creation, including human beings, have these five principal elements which are Prithvi, Jala, Agni, Vayu, and Akash. Akash in turn consists of consciousness and energy. So these five principal elements and the three gunas, S, R, and T. S stands for truthfulness, honesty, steadfastness, and equanimity. R stands for attachment, bravery, ego, ambition, and greed, and desire to live. T stands for lying, cheating, causing injury in words or deeds, and sleep. So as you can, and the emotions, there are two human emotions, positive emotions and negative emotions. Positive emotions consist of unconditional love, kindness, empathy, and compassion. Negative emotions consist of anger, hatred, hostility, resentment, frustration, jealousy, fear, sorrow, and the like. If you reflect on what I said about SRT and the two emotions, you will quickly realize that that positive emotions correlate strongly and positively to the S component, and negative emotions strongly and positively correlate to the R and T component. So, if you reflect on the origin of the universe and the explanation that I've given you, what you will conclude is that we all came from the source, and the source was the consciousness and the five principal elements and the three gunas, which are in turn related to human emotions. Well, you could make a hypothesis that since we came from the source, we should want to return to the source. So, in fact, there is a chapter in the Bhagavad Gita called Sankhya Yoga. How do you return to the source? So, coming to Sanatan Dharma now, Sanatan is perpetual or eternal, I should say, and Dharma is like a duty. So, Sanatan Dharma could be easily interpreted to mean what is our eternal duty? Well, since we have now learned what our nature is, our eternal duty should be to go back to the source at the end of life. Now, the sages suggest that this happens over many lifetimes. How do we have any? Is there any proof of any of this? Well, actually, there is. In Buddhism, there is a concept called Tukdam, Tukdam. Tukdam. In Tukdam, the monk, after leaving his body consciously, some of the principal elements can remain. In other words, the doctor has proclaimed someone to be clinically dead, and yet the body has remained warm for many, many days and free from decomposition. In ordinary death, that cannot happen.
Doctor, sorry to interrupt, but I just want to know, how is, I hear caste system is related to Sanatan Dharma. So Tell me, let's talk about that. Has it changed over time? How is it related?
Okay. You mentioned the movie Oppenheimer.
Yes.
In the movie Oppenheimer makes a reference to Bhagavad Gita. In the Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna talks about the so-called Varna system. Okay, Varna system indicates that we have four Varnas: Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. Depending on the proportion of the SRT components that we have described, each person is endowed with either lots of S component or lots of T component or some S, some R, some T, and so on and so forth. So the Brahman is expected to have a very high amount of S, little r, and little t. Vaishya would have a little bit less S, little bit less R, and a little bit less T, and a little bit more R, and so on and so forth. Finally, for Shudra, there'll be lots of T and not as much S and not as much R. The problem is that in the old times, let's call it Vedic times, even going before Bhagavad Gita, Varnas were never considered acquired hereditarily. In other words, the son of a Brahmin is not necessarily Brahmin, or the son of a Shudra is not necessarily Shudra. The individual capabilities determine somebody's Varna system. Now, Sri Krishna himself explains in Gita how cultures and societies rise and decline as a natural course due to the transformation of these SRT components. So, when S is high, the society rises, but it cannot rise indefinitely, and when it reaches its peak, T takes over and the society begins to decline. T cannot decline indefinitely either, and when it reaches its peak, S takes over and society begins to rise again. So during the course of rise, when S component is high, the society interprets the SRT components correctly and the Varna system correctly, not confusing the Varna system with the caste system. But during the course of decline, the S component has gone down considerably, and now there is political reasons to conclude that that the SRT components can be acquired hereditarily. Now you can readily see this happened in Vedic times. The S component was very high and then began to decline during the time of Mahabharata, and it is now rising. S component is now rising, and the society is slowly beginning to understand that we should not confuse the caste system with the Varna system. So, Pia, did I answer your questions?
Absolutely, you did. But another question that's coming to my mind is like Hindu religion and Sanatana Dharma, is it the same?
Actually, I have a beautiful, I believe, an ancient origin definition of Hindu. Okay. The question is, who's Hindu? So it is translated into English. Whoever realizes that the inferior gunas, whoever realizes that the T component is inferior is a Hindu. But that's not all. Not only must you realize that the T component is inferior compared to S component, but that individual must strive to move from T component to S component. Another way to say it is to strive to move from negative emotions to positive emotions. Such an individual is Hindu. Now, Is that the same as Sanatana Dharma? Well, if you interpret it correctly, it is. But if you don't, then it is not.
Very interesting. Doctor, I know you are having a talk on October 5th, and I want you to talk about it a little bit so that our viewers know and in case they can join. So, absolutely,
Sure,
please do talk about it.
sure. The University of Rhode Island in Kingston has a Center for Nonviolence and Peace. And they have invited me to give a talk on world, one family. In Sanskrit, that would be called Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. And as you know, India was president of G20
Right.
until last week, and India's motto was Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. What I will attempt to explain in Kingston on October 5th is how Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam can be achieved through the concept of Sanatana Dharma. And all of that can be achieved when we realize that all of us, including myself, all of us must strive from a lower level of emotional excellence to a higher level of emotional excellence. And it is not an intellectual exercise. Meaning that rational approaches to achieve a shift from negative emotions to positive emotions are useful and necessary, but they are not sufficient. In order to make solid progress, we will have to transcend reason through emotions and deep contemplation, which will bring about the positive changes from within. And fortunately, now we have a measurement device for emotions that is scientific. And the process with which we can enhance our emotional excellence is meditation, or more generally, yoga. And therefore, progress can actually be audited. And this is the subject of my talk at the University of Rhode Island in Kingston.
And that's on October 5th. And I wish you all the best. And thank you so much, Doctor. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.